Hey Amarillo, I'm Jason Boyette, and you're listening to Hey Amarillo, the interview podcast featuring some of the most interesting people and stories of Amarillo, Texas. So this is episode 401. If you've been paying attention, episode 400, I said I'm going away. You're not going to hear my voice anymore on the podcast. I'm going to break that just momentarily for this episode because I'm back, however briefly, to introduce the new host of the Hey Amarillo podcast, Skylar Gallop.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, Skylar. Thanks for being here. So Skylar has been on the show in the past.
Yep.
You were on an episode in August of 2022, which doesn't seem that long ago, but is plenty long ago at this point. You have a journalism background, a broadcast background. You're good at asking questions. And soon after finding out that I was ready to hang up my microphone, you asked if you could take it over. And so here we are.
I'm so excited to be here. This has been a super fun kind of little venture. I think along with a lot of your listeners, you know, we're excited for your next chapter and support the work that you're doing and gonna do, but a little bit sad to see, I think, this podcast or to think about the podcast potentially not continuing, because I think it provides such a lovely and interesting insight into this city that so much of us call home and love. And so to be able to be a part of keeping that going is very exciting for me.
Good. Well, I'm thrilled to be handing it off to you. When I thought about ending the podcast, I also thought, who could keep doing this? Like, is there somebody I could just hand it off to? Is there somebody who would want to take it over? And it was a very short list, and you were on that list. Very short. I mean, like, there were 2 or 3 people maybe. And I didn't ask you. Like, you came with the question, hey, Could we figure something out? And so I really appreciate that, because I kind of was just going to ghost the whole thing and disappear. And so I appreciate that it happened organically, and I think you're the right person to do it.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. If, you know, anybody that works with me in any of the capacities, I always just say I ask good questions. And for me, really, I'm very excited personally to be going back to, you know, kind of a form of journalism. Storytelling has been a through line in my career that's been kind of a wonky one that bounces back and forth. But what I've always done, whether it was, you know, back in my theater days, certainly as a reporter, you know, even as a public education advocate, storytelling is so powerful. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy it. I believe in it. And I'm really excited to stretch back into storytelling with this platform.
Okay, so let's talk about your career, because I know if people know you, they know that you've been working for the past few years with Raise Your Hand Texas, and that work is going to continue. Yep. This is not like a full career shift. Mm-hmm. I did the podcast along with, you know, a half dozen other things too. But for listeners who maybe don't remember your episode, just kind of walk us through the parts of your career that sort of have sent you in this direction.
Sure. So I am not a native Amarilloan. I grew up just south of Lubbock and then moved up here to go to WT. And from there, just found that this was my community. I graduated from WT with a broadcasting degree and moved around the state for a handful of years, reporting and telling stories across the state of Texas. When it was time to hang up that microphone, Amarillo, as I said, was home. Came back, did some comms work until I found a more permanent career with Raise Your Hand Texas, and that is pro public education advocacy. So I've been working with Raise Your Hand for going on 6 years now. I will continue working with Raise Your Hand. So if you're one of my advocates listening, I'm still your girl. We're still working together to fight the good fight for our public school students, and just kind of adding this to the plate. I do some other stuff in town.
Let's talk about some of those things, because I think people, if they knew you from your work with Elevate, they may recognize your name. Through that, you have hosted some town halls, candidate forums, those sorts of things, very ably. The last one I talked to you after it was over, I was like, that was really great. It only took an hour and a half instead of 3.5 hours or something. So you've done a lot of increasingly public things in Amarillo.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to spend my time building my community. And I love being able to have built a network and learned from and walked beside and rumbled with other people in our city that also want to spend their time building our community. And I see this podcast and as an extension of that. Elevate Amarillo, of course, is a leadership development organization that I spent a good handful of years really, really digging in and building that organization. I'm coming off the board for the first time in I think it's been 6 years, and leaving it in super capable hands over there. I'm also on the Parks and Rec Department board. Like I said, host some town halls and really involved in the great work that the Amarillo Area Foundation is doing. And so I've just been lucky enough to meet some people, you guys and, Brick and Elm. And there's just a great group of people that spend their time improving our community as best we can,
as best we can. So I want to ask this. This is not a job interview because you've already got the job. But you mentioned that you're good at asking questions. I want to know what you think maybe you're looking forward to most about hosting a podcast, because I know this is your first one.
It is.
You're not a veteran podcaster, nor was I when I started. What do you think you will like most about it, and what do you think will be the most challenging for you, given your skill set, given your background about hosting a show like this?
So speaking personally, I'm most excited about, I believe that this podcast will take me into spaces and places in the community that I'm not familiar with. I know the nonprofit world, I know the education world, I do city work and that sort of stuff. I know some big leaders in town, but I'm excited to, interview people in the business community, interview people, and so I think this podcast, because it's not centered on any one industry or, part of the universe in Amarillo, I think it's really going to open my eyes to areas of my community that I'm not yet familiar with, which is one of the things. I'm a lifelong learner. The reason I'm a good question asker is that I'm, some would say nosy. I choose curious.
You're curious.
I'm curious.
Curiosity is a better word.
That's right. And so I'm excited to learn what I don't yet know about our community.
What do you think will be hard about it?
Even in conversations that we've had, I'm going to have to do some shifting of my news brain. Mm-hmm. My news brain thinks around timeliness, right. What's happening right now, and what's the story that you form around the thing that happened today.
3-minute packages.
That's right. Real quick stuff. And I believe that one of the things that has made this podcast successful and that I'll be working to shift is actually like evergreen stories. Mm-hmm. That's what we call them in news, that it's not about the city elections that happened the other day or, right. This thing or school's getting out, so you better prepare your pool, that kind of a thing. That it really is find the good stuff that people are going to enjoy and be interested in and tell those stories. And so I'm excited to kind of challenge my mind to shift the way that I'm looking at developing my content.
Okay.
We're thankful for the support for this episode coming from the Amarillo Art Institute at Arts in the Sunset. If you haven't been, this place is an amazing center for Amarillo's vibrant art scene. They have monthly events, including the First Friday Art Walk, as well as classes for children and adults in things like glass blowing, weaving, and pottery. It's really cool. And it was just announced that Amarillo's beloved Hoodoo Mural Festival will find a new home this year at Arts in the Sunset. So excited for that partnership. Check them out on Facebook. That is Arts in the Sunset. Thanks for your support.
Give listeners an idea of what might change, what might stay the same. I mean, a podcast is the product of the host. You set the tone. And so I don't have any preconceived ideas that nothing will ever change because now it's Skylar's show. But are you thinking of anything now? Are there things that you want to remain consistent for listeners? I mean, how are you thinking about it?
I am a big fan of not reinventing a wheel. And I am humble enough to think that you probably did a pretty good job over 7.5 years of figuring out.
It's a decent wheel. It keeps on rolling.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. And so, especially for a while, Jason, I'm going to get in here and I'm going to keep telling the cool stories of interesting people in Amarillo. The voice will change. Certainly, we are different humans with different lenses, and so the perspective will change. And I hope that our listeners find that interesting and maybe new and
maybe relieving to them.
I'm sure that's not the case.
Finally.
But I think I might change the 8 straight questions.
Okay.
So to that extent for a while until I kind of get a chance to get in here and see what it feels like and see how it's going for me. But, the voice is going to be different. The person asking questions will be different. But, one of the things as I've kind of stumbled down this road since we first kind of said, could this be a thing that I've found myself thinking about a lot is the power of knowing your neighbor. And I think it's really hard to judge someone or not or it's harder anyway to not like someone or judge someone because they're different if you know their story. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the approach that I'm taking with the podcast is let's get our neighbors' stories into each other's ears and hearts, as you've been doing, for 400 episodes now. I think there's a community building tool in the format that you've built in this podcast, and that's sort of the purpose that I'm really excited to get in and work around in as I pick it up.
Okay, so the question I always got from people is, how do you know who to interview, and are you afraid that you'll run out of interesting guests? My answer to that was almost everyone is a good podcast guest, and I'm never going to run out of people unless I do 200,000 podcasts. How are you thinking about that? Do you have future guests in mind? Do you have a list that you're working off of? Are you looking for people? Are you open to suggestions?
Yes to all. Jason, because of our conversations, that's the first question I asked you.
Yeah.
Did you already take them all?
Did you get all the good ones?
Did you take them all? And then, one night, I've been so excited about this. One night I was up at 3:00 in the morning thinking, and so I was like, well, let's get up and make a cup of coffee. And I sat down for, I think it was 15 minutes. And the only Googling I did was to see if they'd already done one.
Okay.
And I wanted to get a year's worth, so 52. And I got it in about 15 minutes.
You know what? I did the same thing for you. Oh. I just haven't given you that list yet. So we'll see how much overlap we have.
Yeah, we'll converge them. That's so funny. I really believe, okay, so the woman that you interviewed the other day that's the director of whatever at NASA, that's an incredible story.
Right.
She sells herself, right?
Holly Writings.
Yes, and it's a great episode, and I loved it. So there are some that their stories sell themselves. But man, I think everybody has a life and a story. And, I think it's interesting it's one of the things that I learned when I was a reporter, because being a reporter not only gives you access to all moments of life, and also an opening to ask questions. And you sit somebody down and really get them talking, which is what our job is, and I think I'm pretty good at. I think everybody's got a story and everybody's got a slice of this life. You know what I mean? I'm that kind of curious person that when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I'm looking at people going they're living a life just like I am.
Yeah.
And they can sit down and have a conversation and they have hardships and triumphs and passions and weird stuff that's happened. I also believe, maybe not everybody's flight director at NASA.
No,
but
that's true.
Yeah, we are all walking this world with some pretty incredible experiences that everyone can learn from.
Well, and sometimes the episodes that got the most discussion were people that no one had heard of.
Right.
It's not always the high-profile guests that are the most interesting.
Yeah.
I know we sort of rushed to get this one out because we wanted to get back in people's feed, mm-hmm. Make sure that it's not over. You can stay subscribed. But do you have a timeline? Once you start, you have to do it every week. So I know that you're not eager to just jump in immediately. You're kind of getting your wits about you, figuring out the whole process. So what do you have in mind?
I'm walking forward with it. It's all happened really fast, and it's been really exciting. And this is one of those things, a lot of times things are really daunting until you just start like, okay, well, let's go buy the gear. Let's make some, let's do that stuff. And we're doing that. And now we're doing this, and we're going to turn it around and put this one up. And so I really think that things will start happening, that people will be able to listen to cool stories of their neighbors here pretty quickly. I would imagine certainly within the month of June.
Okay.
And I've got in my head a timeline that's pretty early in June. But, leaving some space for some hiccups. I'm, still kind of nailing some stuff down and learning software interfaces and all sorts of that really fun stuff. But I'd assume pretty quickly.
Well, I am excited that it's going to continue. I'm going to be listening to it. I'm excited that you're the one doing it because I think you're going to do a really good job. And I can't wait. It's weird to create something and then hand it off to somebody else. But it's like any parent that raises a child, and then you have to go to give them to the first grade teacher for the day. So there's a lot of trust involved, but you hope to see it grow in the process. And so I'm really looking forward to how it changes, how it continues moving forward, what sort of influence it continues to have. I think it's going to be fun to watch it as an outsider.
Yeah.
Or listen to it as an outsider.
To it, yeah.
I don't know how podcasts work.
You sure don't. No. Well, I appreciate your kind words and the trust you've extended. And I think, and you're going to hold my hand for a little bit. You promised you would, and I'll hold you to it.
Yeah, I will be here to consult.
That's right. But it's much appreciated, and I'm excited to see where this journey leads all of us together as well.
Well, Skylar, have fun with the podcast.
Thank you.
I want to let you close things out instead of me.
Okay, well, that does it for episode 401 of Hey Amarillo. This episode is supported by The Blind Pig, Amarillo's newest cocktail lounge, right on our historic Route 66. This new spot is lively yet cozy. It gives great laid-back fun vibes, but with a top-shelf signature cocktail menu. They bring out an actual mechanical bull on Wednesdays, karaoke on Thursdays, and live music throughout the weekends. That's The Blind Pig, Amarillo's newest lounge down on 6th Street. Check them out on Facebook or just drop in for a drink. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time on Hey Amarillo.